Hello, hello, everybody. I am Matthew Orr of Wet Ink Games, and this is Other Ink Thursday, where I talk to other creators about their ink that they're working on. And today I've got another double interview for you with Will Munn and Drew Gerken from the Arium game, published by Adept Icarus. We're going to talk about that. We're going to talk about the three books. We're going to talk about the crowdfunding campaign, online tools, all kinds of stuff. Hey, Will, Drew, welcome.
Hey, thanks, man.
Hi.
Thanks so
Uh,
much for having us.
well, yeah, of course, because it's like, I mean, Will and I have, hey, Will and I have been friends. We've been hanging out at
Yeah.
cons. We've been like play testing each other's games for a while now. But like,
Yeah.
it's always great to meet somebody new. And Drew, you're like, we've chatted for like the last 10 minutes before I pushed
Yeah.
record. But like, you're a new personality to me. So I definitely want to
Yeah.
ask you some questions about like games and how you got like into games because
Sure.
I mean, we're here to talk about Arium, and Arium is a uh it's a world building activity plus it's a rule set, and you could build all these worlds and stuff like that, but that is not like what I would think of as, even for indie sphere, that is not like a typical game. So for you to be co-designer of something that is pretty atypical, I assume there's like a cool, interesting story about like getting into games. So maybe there's not, but like I
Yeah.
don't know. I assume like what I mean before we ask you like how you got connected to this game in particular, are you a gamer? Like do you play RPGs?
Yeah. 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 Absolutely. Yeah, I mean, I would say that my story of getting into gaming is probably very similar to a lot of people's, like
Yeah.
search for escapism, getting through your teenage years or your tween years and that awkward stage of life and wanting to be bigger and stronger and smarter
Mm,
and more badass than you are in real life, and you find your way into role-playing games. And for me, the storytelling part, the character progression part is like what really draws me into games. Like the combat mechanics and stuff is like, it's great, that's fun, but for me it's like story arc, character
mm.
progression, like tri-fail cycles and stuff like that. And that's what really hooked me in. And and I've been gaming since, gosh, the mid 90s, right? All the way
Yeah.
back in the 1900s, I was
Right,
gaming.
right.
Yeah.
It's gaming
Yeah.
since last century. Um uh so the question that I mean, it's the obvious question, right? But like
Yeah.
the way I've been asking it this year is like when you think of like a role-playing game, like the quintessential role-playing game, what for you is that? And everything is sort of referenced from that, or is, it's the I don't know. I was going to make up a Hokusai example, but no, never mind. But
Sure.
what is for you the game that is the game that starts, or
Of an actual system?
yeah, yeah. I mean, when you think of like, that's what a role-playing game is. And even if all of your work is going in a different direction, there's probably still
Yeah.
one that is like, oh, that's what a game is, and then I'm doing something different, or I'm doing something the same. But what is that
Yeah.
one game for you?
Whoa, man. I mean, I definitely have my favorites, right? Like
Sure.
my super nostalgic favorite games. The one that really set the hook for me was actually Earth Dawn, FASA's
Okay.
first edition Earth Dawn. Again, mid 90s is like, and that was like for anyone who doesn't know the premise, one, you should check it out, because for me, lore is really, really important. Background, setting information, like a lot, quote unquote, most of the work that I've done in writing for RPGs has been related to like world building, setting, lore, that sort of stuff, right? That's the stuff that really interests me. And Earth Dawn is a game where you start out sealed in a magical citadel called a care. A really horrible high magic period of time is waning, where cosmic monsters called horrors have come to the material plane through the astral plane, and the magic wanes, so they start to recede, and the magical barriers of these cares um, starts to give out, and you walk out into a world that you have never experienced before. And so from moment one, it's I have no idea where I am. I've heard legends of things out here, but the world itself just isn't what it was because it's been ravaged by this magical incursion, and now we're out to explore in a very high stakes way, right? Like a very
Yeah.
life or death way. And to me, that's like quintessential role playing.
Yeah. I know the name Earth Dawn, but I don't know it other than that. So
Yeah.
that sounds it's certainly atypical. I don't want to talk too much about myself, but like I'm used to riffs, and
Yeah.
that's my central core memory of gaming. And like there's a world
Yeah.
book for like everything in riffs. Like there's no mystery. Like if you just buy the book, it gives you the stat blocks for the
Yep.
vehicles and the every NPC, and like it's all detailed out. And there's no so how does Earth Dawn, does it mechanize the discovery of the world in any sort of way, or is it just sort of like, I don't know, you make it up? Like, is
Yeah,
it?
no, it's a fully fleshed out game, right? It's got, like bestiary books, like supplemental books with
Mm,
creatures that are fully statted, and you have like in classes are called disciplines there, and you've got level progression and unlocking skills and spells. But that's the sort of the meta side of it, right? But the in character side,
mm,
and it could, obviously in any game you can tell any story, but the one that really set the hook for me was we're in this magical fortress where I was born and raised, and it's the only thing I know. Something crazy happens, the doors open, and now we have to go look and survive and figure out what's
yeah.
happened to this world. And so the in character side is very much I have no idea what's happening, but the game has
Okay.
got dozens and dozens of supplemental books with rules. And um back in the FASA days when this game was published, the sister game is Shadowrun. And so there is the age that Earth Dawn is set in, then there's another age, and then there's the age of Shadowrun. So there's like high magic and then cyberpunk with magic, a few ages later. And there's some tie-ins and crossovers between the lore of those two games.
Mm, mm, mm. This is also news to me. This is a whole like area.
Oh,
Like again, I know Shadowrun as a game, but
yep.
this is that this all seems a little slightly before my. It's not before my
Yeah.
time, but like it's. I wasn't doing that.
Yeah.
I was in. We were fighting the coalition over in Rifts, North America. That's what we were doing.
Well, yeah, and I like I cut my teeth with D&D like second edition, like what was that, the red box, I think. Like that was probably the first RPG that I really played. Um Earthdawn and Shadowrun were there. We played a lot of GURPS, if you're familiar with GURPS, like played a lot of that.
I definitely know
Um
what it is.
yeah, yeah. So and probably a handful of other games that I'm not fully remembering from that period
Yeah.
of time as well.
Well, I haven't asked you anything yet. You're here, and you've just heard us talk about these games. Is there a game that you want to shout out as like a sort of a core memory game for you, and then
Hmm.
that I don't know, that set you up for the career that you have? Because you're the other half of this co-design or another part of this design team. You got another person too that
Right. Yeah. Unfortunately, we couldn't get Asha Entz with us here today, but
yeah.
she's also very core to the team here. I
I,
think
we'll talk about that,
that
how that team formed in a second, but like the
yeah, yeah, we
yeah,
can.
what's your I don't know. Why do you like world building games? Like what's your game that most contributed to that for you?
That most contributed to world building games. Well, I feel like there's several different questions that have been asked here. I gotta like
Yeah.
lay that out in my head.
Well, let me
You
ask you
know,
the core memory one. What's your when I say it's a role playing game, you're like, I know what that is because I've played this one.
yeah. Yeah, I mean the first exposure I ever had to role-playing games was also D&D, but I think that it's funny because Drew and I bonded over this, I think, a long time ago, that for me, the first game I played where I really had a long-running campaign that that, and the GM was phenomenal, was Shadowrun. And so, and he was just so good at it. And I thought, wow, this is incredible. This is what, this sort of emergent storytelling can be like, right?
Yeah, yeah.
And I at
Now this
one
is role
point went
playing.
and bought, yeah, exactly. At one point I went and bought Earthdawn books because I was like, it's so cool. It's like Shadowrun, but it's more fantasy. And then when somebody comes to me and says, I want to play D&D, we could play this instead. And of course that's not really how that works, but that was the the thought that I had at the time. Yeah.
Well, I don't know. You kind of, I don't know. You kind of play the game that somebody knows how to play already. I mean, that's kind of
Yeah.
how
Yeah,
it works a lot of the
definitely.
time.
That's often true.
Well, well, thanks for that. But do you have one that then, like I kind of asked you a different version of the question there. Do you have one
Mm.
for that like is your sort of a game that made world building not like a cool thing that somebody else had done and is in a book, but that it is part of the game? Like, do you have one that is sort of, or something that you could that you attribute to like where that came from, that your desire to make a game like that came from?
You know, I've always been really interested in creating worlds and doing new things with that. And so that was like, and I wanted to be a writer, right? I wanted to make up my own worlds for writing and things like that. And so um that is definitely a major component of it. And I knew that there were world building games out there, and there were even at the time when Arium came out, there weren't a whole lot of them, or there weren't a whole lot of games that had world building as like a component even of the game, and that's changed a lot in the intervening 6 years, where a lot of games have some world building element to them now, and I love that. I think that's wonderful. Um, but at the time, I think there was Microscope and Kingdom, and there were um, hmm, I guess Fate had an element of world building to it. And I had not actually played Microscope when we very first came up with the idea for Arium. We ended up playing it as we went through like doing design and everything, just because we had heard about it. We're like, oh, we gotta make sure we're not making Microscope again. And good news, we didn't. But it was really interesting because I don't think there weren't a lot of contemporaries at the time. So yeah, I mean, I had played Fate and I'd done a little bit of the world building that it has, and we did play Microscope at a point along the progression of the original design. But our goal for Arium, I think, was always to make something that doesn't put any one person at the table on the hook for having the great idea,
Hmm.
right? And that was one of our core principles behind the design of the game is that as long as you have a group, you're going to come out with a world that everybody loves, and that was the goal.
Hmm. Well, that's a really solid goal. Very succinctly stated. Um, so I guess then you've got you playing these games and wanting to make stories, and then Drew, you're like, oh, I just really like the lore and the world building. So like you said that you were teasing each other about like, you got the Earth Dawn, Shadowrun, two halves of the same coin kind of thing. So like what's then the start of like, well, we got to do this together, you and Asha all like, I mean, I don't know. Tell me the origin story of this project as, where does it go back to then from, is it just,
I think,
hey, we
I
should
think,
make a game, or is there more to it than that?
yeah, I think Drew and I tell it slightly differently. I like his version better, so I'm gonna let him tell like the original part, and then there'll be a point where he probably wants to hand it to me.
Yeah. Yeah, it's just a little bit of background. We've talked about this a few times in the past, but like Will and I, we worked together, at this kind of the start of all of this, and we were in a writers group together, and at our work, and we had a bunch of friends, and we sort of had this idea of like, man, what if we figured out a setting that all of us could write a short story in and write some fiction in, and Will came in with this idea, um, that his team was using for ideating through projects at work and stuff like that. And he ran us through this process of coming up with ideas for the setting and then voting and figuring out like this is what the group really wants. And where it really connected with me was right around the same time I was running a Dungeons and Dragons 3.5 edition game. I think it was 3.5. Maybe it was the very beginning of fifth edition. Actually, it was probably the very beginning of fifth edition. Sorry. And I was running a D&D game, and I bring in my homebrew world that I've been working on for 10 years, and it's my baby, and I've got my pantheon with its rich lore and all of this stuff, and
All the stuff you love.
about all the stuff I love. And about 3, 4, 5 sessions in, the group said, "Hey, we love gaming with you, man, but we just don't get this place. Like, like people stopped showing up, or there was last minute cancellations." And it was like, totally gutted me. Like, that I appreciate them telling them like, "Hey, we like gaming, but we don't really love this world." And I went and kind of cried to my writer friends and said, "Oh man, these guys, like, they sort of hate my world." And Will and I talked, and there was like a light bulb moment of like, well, maybe I could just do this thing with my group that we just did with the writers group, and come up with a way to get everybody at the table invested in the campaign and the world that we're playing in. And that, for me, that was really the light bulb moment, because I ran the group through that, and to this day these guys still talk about that campaign setting that we created together in the sessions that we played there, because they all had a voice in the creation of the world. It wasn't just the dungeon master's baby that they've been working on and think is the greatest world ever created, right? So it was a humbling experience, but it was also for me the genesis of like, man, this is a really great concept. And luckily Will has a ton of motivation and had seen the long term. So I'll hand it over to him to kind of talk about his perspective of it. But for me, that was kind of where it was like, man, we did this thing and people really enjoy it. And like my group is showing back up eager to play again, right? So there's got to be something to it here.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, and that's the other. So there's basically two principles to Arium. The one is, nobody has to have the amazing idea. No one person has to have the amazing idea. The other is everybody gets to do something in a world that they have a vested stake in, right? So, but yeah, we went to Drew and I went to a local convention in Utah. I was living in Utah at the time. And we went to a local convention there, and we had, I was on some panels and stuff, and I had set up with them to have a room for 2 hours to just make a world with people using some of the, this same sort of concept. We had done it, Drew had done it with the D&D group, and we had done it with the writers group, and we did another little demo exercise. We're like, well, let's try this with some strangers, right? Let's see what that's
Yeah,
like.
yeah.
And so we had a room of, I can't remember the exact number, but I know it's somewhere between 12 and 18 people in the room, right? And we ran them through what at the time we were calling the sticky note game or something like that. I can't remember. And it wasn't
Very
even
catchy title.
we didn't
Very
even
catchy
recall it
title.
an RPG or anything. It was just,
Yeah.
we're just gonna do sticky note world building, I think is
Yeah,
what it
yeah.
was called. So very, very yeah. Very captivating. Anyway,
Well, it's literally what it is, but like it
yeah,
Yeah.
is, not as
yeah.
digestible of a brand, perhaps.
Right, right.
Um,
But yeah, it was great. Everybody had a super fun time, and Asha Entz was there in the room and as part of the audience, the group that was helping to build the world. And we had both met her previously. We talked to her a little bit. She had a podcast that Drew and one other individual were working on together at the time, um, trying to get that off the ground, and her and I got to talking a little bit, and it turns out she had an idea for sort of a, a an RPG that would work in a world of dreams. So basically, where in a dream, almost anything is possible, potentially.
Right.
And she had this sort of concept of an RPG that would work for that. I said, "Well, tell me more about that." And we talked about it a little bit more, and that was about the point that I said, "Well, I think we need to like this a world building game is fun, but it needs to have a role playing game attached to it because that's the whole thing. It needs to work, needs to be like." And originally our plan was just to release it as one big book, but later on we split them out into the two separate books because it feels like they can be used independently, but they work so well together.
Hmm.
Um, and so that's how she got involved, and then ultimately the three of us, right, worked on the whole thing together. Um, and that's then we went to Kickstarter and the rest is history, right?
Right, right,
So
right.
and in immediate overnight success because we had a 3-week campaign or whatever that raised 20 some thousand dollars. So yeah,
Which, I mean, that's good. That's good
yeah,
now. Um,
yeah,
Even better then, maybe. Okay. So I don't know. I want to ask, sorry, I want to ask you about like I've got down a note here that says world building is play in quotes, and I want to ask you about that because I know that's something I think you say will or I associate it with this project, but I think maybe I'll come back to that because I think you've talked about post-it notes and you talked about voting and nobody has to have a good idea and everybody has like stakes. So like how does Arium work? Like is it uh, I mean, I don't know. I can imagine all kinds of stuff, but like, how do you do that? Like passing the talking stick? Like, I mean, how do you do that? Forcing participation, but not like
yeah.
putting people in the spotlight too much. Like, how does it actually work? Um, and you
It very
can,
much uses human psychology, right? I mean, it very much uses human psychology. If it didn't, it wouldn't work at all. But we limit people. So the sticky note is a limitation of its own, right? There's only so much you can write on a sticky note before you run out of space. So one idea per sticky note. That's rule number one, right? One idea per sticky note. Um, and then the next rule is we don't give you a lot of time to write a bunch of them, right? You can write some, but usually it's like, what are these first thoughts that come to your mind, right? And you get those down and you write a few of them and we set a timer, we time it. So everybody puts their ideas down. And then there's the meat, right? Which is we call it collaboration or and everybody spends well, everybody in the world would call it collaboration, but you get the idea. Um, Everybody spends some time like talking through the ones that have been written and determining if they should group some of them together. There's a couple reasons why you might group ideas together. You can group them together because George wrote cars and Bethany wrote, like the Model T, and maybe that's just cars, right?
Mhm.
And so you put them together because they're basically the same idea. But it might also be that someone wrote something called something like flying vehicles or something like that. And the group might decide, hey, what if all cars flew? Oh, that's a great idea. Let's combine those because they're better together than they are apart for what we want to make together, right? And so anybody can propose grouping things together, but the people who wrote the ideas have to agree that they need to be grouped together. As long as that happens, it's all good. You can group things together. And then after some amount of time of talking through and deciding if we do want to group things together or not, then we vote on them. Right. And so everybody votes. You get less votes than the number of ideas that there are by a significant amount. And some things will always rise to the top, and those become the things that are canon for the world that you've created. And it just works out that it always is stuff that people like. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
Is there? a because you used this, you talked about Drew using it to develop a world, and I've used Microscope to develop a world that we play D&D in.
Yep.
And it was, I don't know, not necessarily surprising, but like isn't necessarily the thing, you think of like a stereotype, and maybe it's a straw man of a sort of the kind of person who wants to have a D&D story told to them, Um, they're not going to they don't want to decide on the world. They like, you tell me, I'm just here to like, rage when we see a bugbear and roll my d20. That's all I'm here for.
Sure.
um and again, that's not necessarily every player, but like there are some of those players. But like, have
Mhm.
you found, like, what do you think is the magic? Will's talking about human psychology here, but like, what is the, are you surprised that like it can be so universally accepted by like people who are like, is there certain sort of like ground level buy-in that people have to get into before they're like, yeah, let's do this together and make a world that we're excited about? Or is it, I don't know. Is it, it doesn't seem like it's everybody's thing to like make a world, but then maybe I'm wrong. Maybe it is everybody's thing. What have you
Yeah.
found?
I found that like the vast majority of people love building worlds. They just haven't had the right experience doing it.
Mm,
Is in my take on it, that I think a lot, historically, a lot of world building is, I've got to come up with, what does the map look like, and who are the gods, and is there one ruler or many rulers? And it's like more of like a checklist than a conversation, right? Um and I also think that dungeon masters are a unique breed, right? Like people become dungeon masters either because nobody in the group wants to, and someone is just like, I will step up and do it because I want to game, or I have this really great vision of a world that I think we could tell good stories in. And if there's disconnect between dungeon master idea and player idea, then either players stop showing up, or they're there because, hey, we're friends and I just want time together and I just want to hang out. So I will just be dragged along as the murder hobo and kill stuff and knock down doors because I just want to be here at the table. But they're not interested in necessarily the story being told. And so Arium in the world building side just unlocks a creative, I don't like it, just unlocks a creative nature in people that I think like people have said, like, I'm surprised at the ideas I've come up with. I didn't know that we could make something so cool. But the most universal truth of Arium is that every world building session we've run, everyone has left saying, I can't wait to play games in this world or tell stories in this world, because of the vested interest, because they finally have a voice in what it looks like and who is there and what the histories are like, or who the characters are walking around. um and I talk from a very like fantasy bend back because that's the majority of my gaming. But I think this is why Asha was such a pivotal part in joining the creation of this, is that if you're building an RPG system that can handle uh, gaming in a dream world, that means anything is possible, right? And so Arium just sort of allows you to build a world that you didn't know that you wanted to be in, but the moment it's in front of you, you go, gosh, this is exactly what I want to explore right
yeah.
now.
I, I like the idea
Maybe
of permission, and also, Will, you were talking about like additive, like the additive nature of the process is, yeah, like I wrote down Model T, but now I've got flying Model Ts. That's better, like
That's
I
better.
it's,
Yeah.
right.
what were you starting to say, Will? You were
Oh yeah, I was just going to add on to what Drew said a little bit because I agree with everything he said. I think that's spot on. I think that you're also right though, Matt, in that sometimes there are people who I mean, maybe they just opt out of a world building session, right? Instead of joining it, they're like, no, I'll wait until I can play D&D next or whatever, right? And that's okay. The beauty of it is, you can apply the Arium system to something like D&D. Like if you want to role play in Toril or Greyhawk or what, I can't remember what the land is called in Greyhawk, but um or um New Seattle or whatever, right? Like wherever you can do that. And you can just like cut out the first couple rounds of steps in Arium, and then you can build some new cool stuff within the scope of that world really easily. And you just put like your GM will probably want to put a few guardrails around like the types of things you can create and stuff like that. And maybe when we have some guidelines for that I have never published, but maybe someday I will. That talk about like, hey, how do you put effective guardrails around, your core stuff that's within your given game so that you can add on to it. But I think, an inventive GM can definitely do that
Yeah.
without any guidance from me. So
So how much is there? You were mentioning making your maps and making your pantheon and have a checklist. I imagine that Arium also does have that, where it's like this voting process, this like additive thing. What is the balance of people excited about? Okay, now we've got that done. Now here, but like I imagine you have a scaffold in there that like to make a world, here's some things that probably you should think about. Like maybe you don't need to decide about whether or not this planet has plate tectonics, but like there's probably some things that are in that should be in every world that you make. And so what are some of the other stuff? I mean, if I'm right, that there are a certain set of things, like what are some of the other processes that Arium lets you or
yeah.
invites you to make as you go through the whole process?
I can take like at a high level. So if we talked about that cycle of we're going to create ideas, collaborate on them, and vote on them,
Uh-huh.
well, you're going to do that a number of times
Right, right.
because you start at a very, very high and broad level, and then you set up some things, and then there's another sort of prompt basically that you go back to. So we start with like something like, what's the big picture? And then we go into what are the culture and organizations like here? And then you might get into what are specific landmarks that you might see and people who live here and goodies. But all of it is built upon what's at the top and continues to build upon it as you go. So you're always yeah, you don't like change the canon of the world as you go, basically. You increase it, you enhance it, right? And you add detail
Yep.
to it.
And then I guess you add as much detail as you need for whatever you're using it
Yeah.
for.
Yep.
Uh, okay. I don't know how to fit in this question that I asked you before, so I'm gonna ask it as sort of a transition then, like the because you talked about because what I want to ask next is about the RPG that goes with this. I mean, what we've talked
Mm,
about is
yeah.
Arium Create, and that's the process of making the world,
Right.
and then there's Arium Discover, I guess, is the RPG that would work in a dreamscape, and I want to ask about that next. But like this concept of like the world building is playing, you are already playing.
Yeah.
Um,
Yep.
that's something I know. Like I assume you agree, but like I don't know if you want to say more about it or like is that something that you have said? Did I hear that from you or?
I have absolutely yeah, I've said
He's
that a
got
lot.
stickers, man. He's got
Okay,
stickers
I
for it.
figured I think this yeah I don't know if I have a sticker I don't have any stickers like on my desk that say it but I feel like I'd heard it from you so yeah.
Yeah, yeah, that sounds right. Yeah, I think well, and that's part of it too, right? I guess maybe the third pillar is it's a game. It should be fun. If
Hmm.
you're not having fun, then we've done something terribly wrong, right? So, and I think microscope is fun as well. I think lots of ways that you can world build are fun, but I think you can do it in a way that's not fun. And our goal is it should be very fun. But when you're done, you should be super happy, like with the thing that you made, but also with the time that you spent. If you're not happy with the time that you spent, then that's a failure on our part. So yeah.
Yeah, yeah. Well, tell me a little bit about the game then. Like if you've created this world and it exists and you've got it as detailed as you want it to do, what is the how does the game part of it work in consort with that? And I think you've already said, Will, that it like goes they go well together, but can be
Mhm.
separate, but they go well together. So like where's the does the process of creation leave hooks that then the mechanics fit into later, or is it just I mean, I assume it's not you don't vote on like your character classes or whatever. I don't know. Maybe you do. I don't know. You tell me. You tell me. What's how does it work?
Yeah, it's a classless, skillless system, actually. So everybody has a set of attributes, and then some derived attributes, and then some derived attributes. But that's what you have. So that's sort of the core of your character, and then you create um, a set of boons and banes that are tied directly to your character that, they are your character, right? These are things that they can do and they sort of operate off of keywords and things like that. We don't have a specific set of keywords, but you create the keywords as part of naming them. And then they have certain effects. We do have mechanical rules for what those effects are and how they can work, right? And then the same thing for goodies, which are basically narratively relevant items that the character may have. Those also have features and flaws, which work very similarly to the way the boons and banes work for the character, but for the goodie or item. Um, and you can frame those around whatever you like. I mean, we even in the back of the book, we have a table with a whole bunch of suggested names. Well, no, sorry, we have like 13 tables, I think. There's a bunch of them of
People love
D66
random
tables of
tables.
just names. Yeah, people love tables. That's not why
Did I
we
say
made
name?
them,
I
but
meant people love random roll tables. People
they
love
do.
to roll on tables. Like,
Yeah. Yeah, that's true. That part is true.
um,
So those are there, but generally, depending on the world that you've created, um, and well, let me step back a second because there's one other component where they tie together as well. Because you've created people for this world that you've made, and you also created goodies. And so everybody has an opportunity to take one of the people and one of the goodies to be their character if they would like. So that's one of the ties between the two games where they go really nicely together. But you don't have to use any of those things. You could make your own, right? Just make something new that y'all didn't think of when you were building the world together. But it's kind of fun to see what everybody else in the group has thought of in terms of people who might live here. And when we create the world, we do vote on the people and the goodies, but we don't nothing is like removed, if that makes sense.
mhm.
So anything could become a player's character if they want it to, because it's those are the last two steps of the world creation. Anyone or anything could become part of a character that someone will play, but um, they don't they don't have to use those. So they can just use whatever they want. Anything that does get high votes, though, will probably show up in some way, shape, or form. Like maybe that's your big bad, or maybe NPCs, or maybe one of the items becomes a MacGuffin, or maybe it's just something that shows up at some point. Who knows, right?
Mm.
But that's kind of how that works. And then,
It's
yeah, go ahead, Drew.
so sorry. I was gonna say it's a great experience when you're at a table because there's always, like Will said at the very beginning, there's way more ideas that are put out there than are voted through, right? But when you get down to people and goodies, our general stance is like if it gets to a sticky note, it probably exists somewhere,
Mm.
and you might never see it. But what it does is it gives the game master the term we use for our game. It gives the game master a whole bunch of fuel and a whole bunch of things in their back pocket to pull out. And there might have been like a really evocative character name that none of the players picked up to play, and then a couple sessions in, like the game master pulls that one person out from the ideation, the world building, and the whole table just goes nuts because they're like, oh my gosh, it's that, like, I remember that guy, it was my idea. Or, and it's just great to see those ideas show up throughout the story. And it just helps tie back into world building as play. Like you're just planting seeds that
Mhm.
may bear fruit in the future, and that's a really exciting moment at the table when that happens.
What is the
Sorry to cut you off, Will.
No, no, you're good. I have to it's all free for all. So what is the basic, like, what is the I mean, this is sort of like too it's too reductive in some respects, but like do you have a set like die resolution system, or is it that
100%.
that's built in and it's all
Yeah.
because you mentioned there's mechanical effects to the boons
Yeah.
and banes and stuff like that. So is it a D6 dice pool? Is it a D20?
Yeah.
What did you land on for that?
Funny enough, even though neither Drew or I came up with the original design for it, it is a D6 dice pool. Yeah, and that's our, Shadowrun and Earthdawn are both D6 dice pool games. So,
I mean, it's a very
yeah,
popular choice
yeah,
because people have
yeah.
lots of D6s laying around. It's a well-known die type.
Yeah, yeah. And that was part of it, right? It was nice to have something where you know that, if people are playing, they probably have some dice around the house that they could play with if they wanted to, and they don't have to like buy special dice or anything for it. But, you know, I have loads of special dice, so I'm not knocking special dice, trust me. But yeah, it's a D6 dice pool system, and essentially you're rolling whatever your attribute is at any given moment, right? If you want to make a test. And those tests are modified by the boons, banes, features, and flaws of things if they narratively come into play at the moment, right? So say you have, I should pull one from one of the random tables. That would be fun.
Wait, are you consulting your own website where some of these tools exist?
That there are some things on the website where some of these tools exist. If you had like a weird bane, like ooh, my blood gives magicians power, and you got
Okay.
into a
Yeah, that's
situation where your blood gave magicians power, and that was acting against you actively. Like maybe you're fighting against a magician, and they're getting powered up by you just being there. Then you might have a modification to a roll where that would be an impediment to you, right? So there's four different types of modifications that there can be to rolls, and players get to choose which ones they want. And so there's four types for the negative effects, and there's four types for the positive effects. And they're basically mirror images of each other. Some of them add more dice to your dice pool. Some of them give you advantage. Some of them add like successful numbers to an already existing roll. And then some of them let you re-roll under certain circumstances. So, yep.
yeah. Uh, well, I think we've chatted maybe too long about all of this stuff already. I haven't really asked you about like what I just mentioned the website. So like what before the crowdfunding campaign that you are getting ready to do is for book three in this series.
Hmm.
And I do want to hear about what book three is, but I also want to hear about what exists already. So like because you've got one book, you've got two books. I just mentioned the website. It's you've got like a character, like a one-click character generator. You released or are releasing. I mean, and I guess what I'm asking is like I know because I know you will that you've doing certain things, but like I don't know if this is all kind of like going to come out as part of the campaign or not. That's kind of why I'm because
Mm.
like you've got an SRD that's ready, and because I've seen the logo for it and stuff like that. But like I don't know if that's like maybe I should, that's a secret stretch goal that I shouldn't have said, like, so what exists now before part three, the crowdfunding that we're about to talk about? Like what all extra stuff is there beyond the two books?
Yeah. Well, I'll talk about the character builder really briefly. Drew, maybe do you want to talk about the Flash generator? Because you've
Sure.
got some stuff in there, so that would be good.
Yeah.
And then don't know. I think we might like let's leave the SRD conversation as a secret maybe for the moment. I mean, I
Sure.
think if people wanted to dig around, they could probably find some information that is preliminary but not complete.
Okay. Okay.
But yeah, let's leave it
Well,
at that.
tell us
Yeah.
about your character builder then, and
Okay.
yeah.
Yeah, so this is like there's a fun story to this because it was about 3.5 years ago, after the crowdfunding campaign, after, any nominations, after, some pretty good after sales and stuff like that, and we were getting close to starting to get close to sell out of our initial run of the game and everything, which was pretty cool. And I'm a dual purpose person, right? I run Adept Icarus and I also have another job in the daytime, right? And
As
I
so
was
many creators do.
right, right. And just so happened I was laid off from that job, like right around that time. Which is, this is 3 years ago. Like, don't feel bad for me. It was fine. Actually, it was great because I was like, oh, huh, what am I going to do with my time? Because I have some time on my hands. And so I got together with a couple of friends and like, hey, do you want to do a thing with me? And they actually recorded this. It's out there on YouTube somewhere, like us making the original version of the character builder. And so we made it together, like we programmed it all online in like a I don't think I think it's on YouTube. You'd have to look for it, but we made the original version of the character builder, and then they published the episodes of it at some point. And then I have tweaked it a lot since then. So it's one click, and I got a bunch of writers to come up with really weird and wild ideas for all the random stuff that can be procedurally generated by the character creator. And so you never know what you might get when you click that button. I'll tell you, it can be pretty wild. It's not there's not really any rhyme or reason to it, but I think it's kind of fun, and I am very likely to continue to work on it some more and make it so that you can maybe you can roll a random thing and be like, okay, that part I want to keep and that part I
Mm,
want to keep, and sort of freeze them and then re-roll the rest of it. So I'm probably going to do something like that maybe as a stretch goal for the upcoming campaign if we get, enough support to justify that. And then probably also make it so you can just type in all your own answers if you want to for things as well, and still print out the sheet. Right now you can print and share the sheets, which is pretty nice. So yeah, that's
yeah.
about it for the character generator.
I mean, it's great. It's like in a world where there's so many one-page character generators for things like all the Morkborg versions
Yeah,
and stuff like that. It's like you gotta. It's nice to have one that's going off in its own direction.
yeah.
It's really cool. I Yeah, we did a yeah. I don't. There's a very simplified character generator for one of my first games, but it's like you check. It's got like it's not digital. It's like a page. It's like you check
Mm,
which stat block you want to have, and then that's your whatever.
Yeah.
But it's
nice.
a simplified character creation because character creation is a arduous process. Um, so what is Flash? Because like that's not like I thought they got rid of Flash. Like what is Drew? What's Arium Flash?
Yeah, so Flash is on the website. So and Will, if I stray here, let me know. But Flash was basically one of our stretch goals for the original campaign, where Will and I got a bunch of our writer friends together. Utah is a really cool place. There's a lot of really high profile and really fantastic, talented writers, and then the network expands from there. And so we got writers to come together and write just short concepts for different genres that your world may fall into. So, like, I wrote for superheroes themed games, right? And so what we did was basically create some prompts for, like, we want to tell a story. It's a superhero story. I look in Flash and I find a few of these, and boom, we're ready to drop in because it gives us guidance. And Will has brought that to the website as a free tool, that basically becomes like a kind of like a Mad Lib experience. I think is the easiest way to distill it, right? Like you can go in and choose a genre, and it'll give you a prompt, and then within that prompt, there's some fill in the blank ideas. And so you've kind of got a broad framework, and then you can drop in your own specific concepts in there. In like in a very, very brief, like minutes, you have broad strokes of a story to start telling, like a setting to start telling stories in. So, and that's out there for anybody that wants to use it. Is not limited to having to play Arium Create or Arium Discover. It's just a tool that can be used by anybody.
Neat.
How'd I do, Will?
Did pretty good. Yeah.
All right.
Yeah. The writers from all over the world contribute to that. There's I think 20, 24 different authors.
Cool.
Yeah.
Cool.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I'll
it's
have to
great.
go. I mean, yeah, I'm going to put links to these things we've been talking about in the description of this video, so anybody who's
Yeah.
listening can go check those out. Um, but we haven't. Yeah, I've taken so much of your time getting you to explain, catch me up to where you've been already. We barely have any time left to talk about like what this crowdfunding campaign is. So like it's a third book, Arium Evolve. What more Arium was needed? Like what else was needed that you're doing? Like what do you on offer? And I mean this is I mean both of you, either of you can answer the question, or both of you in turn can answer it. I don't know. Like what's being added by this third book?
Lots of cool stuff. And then I'll turn it over to Will.
Of course, it's a good pitch. Lots of cool stuff. You can't live without.
I don't know if I can follow that. It's just too
Yeah.
good.
I mean,
Yeah, no,
is
it's go ahead.
go. I mean, with the name Evolve, you've got like create and discover, and then evolve is it's a perfect third name. Like it certainly implies the like okay, it's the same but more. It's different. It's growing. Like what else are you trying to do with this thing?
Yeah. Well, it turns out that no world that you create in 2 to 4 hours can't be completely explored in some certain amount of time, right? I think at some point you will have explored what you've created, right? So part of it was, adding rules for ways to continue to grow the world as you continue to explore it, but also having more ways to bring in some of those collaborative tools of Arium Create into the entire role-playing game sort of approach, right? Because when we built Discover, we did a lot of playtesting, we did a lot of playtesting, and we did a lot of thinking about, hey, how can we bring some of these cool like collaborative techniques from the Create into Discover, and we couldn't really quite ever land it, right? Like it always felt like a little bit of, oh, we're stopping doing what we're doing and we're going to do this thing. It
Right,
doesn't
right.
feel it doesn't feel quite right. And so
There's a festival in the next valley. Let's decide what that festival is celebrating real quick.
Yeah.
Let's play a real quick little thing, right? I mean,
right,
that's the kind of thing
right.
you're talking about.
Right, which you totally can do, and it actually does. I mean, we've done enough playtesting of it now that we've found ways to make it not be too rough to do things like that. And so part of it is just you just have to simplify it, right? You've just got to find like how do you make it even faster, even simpler, right? And get through it as quickly as possible, and maybe not spend so much time stopping to smell the roses along the way, right? As it were. So it's part of it is that like bringing in some of those collaborative concepts, and it's not just about world building, it's also about character building and about background and what happens, in between adventures and things like that. And so there's a lot of those types of things in there. And we also found like there are ways that we could make the existing games just better than they were before. And so we've added some new concepts that we really like. Like the relationships mechanic is super cool. I really love that. It's everybody who's tried it just loves it. It's very fun to sit down and people write their own, they write questions. So that's you do idea generation, but you're just writing questions. You write questions that you would ask from one character to another if they knew each other, about what they know about each other,
Mm.
right? And then everybody gets to choose from this master list of questions that they've created, the ones that they want to ask to one of the other characters in the group. And so they grab them, they ask them to each other, and then they get those answers and they know a little bit more about how their characters know each other. So it's not just some rote list, it's a list that the group came up with together after they've finished creating their characters. And then they go and apply, once they have this little bit of information, they apply a relationship type. So everybody gets a relationship type. And so my relationship to you is that you are found family to me. But your relationship to me is that you feel very transactional toward me, right? And so they're not always going to line up. Sometimes they will, but
Right.
they're not always going to line up. And that's part of what makes it, I think, much more compelling and interesting in terms of like what the characters know about each, or what the players even know about their characters' relationships going into the game. Um, and I know there's a lot of things like that out there, but they're a little more uh, generally a little more on the prescriptive side, I think. And this was just we just wanted to do it in a really Arium sort of way, and so
Yeah.
that's kind of how that's done. And there's a lot of other neat things and Evolve that are like that. I could probably let Drew talk about a couple of them if,
Sure.
yeah.
Yeah. I think for me, Evolve is just a toolkit of ways to continue enriching the experience that you and your group are having together. We sort of have a shorthand for our books, right? And so Arium Create is our system agnostic world building game, right? So you can build any world you want, and then you could grab your favorite rules set and drop it in there, right? And when you have that sort of experience, you then need a world agnostic, role playing system that
Right.
can adapt to whatever your beautiful brains come up with and create. You could create this amazing world and say, but we're going to play D&D 5e in it, and then you're going to spend 10 times as long reskinning everything for from D&D into that'll fit into that, right? So we just made a system that could adapt to any world from the get-go. And then Evolve is really like a huge set of really great ideas that can fit into any group setting and adapt to any game that you choose to play. And then there's expansion and evolutions of the concepts we have in Create and Discover as well. So even if maybe Arium Discover isn't the mechanical system that you want to use for your role playing experience, there's a ton of great concepts within here. My favorite, um, I think, collaboration is like the key word of this whole ecosystem.
Mhm,
Everything is
mhm.
built on collaborative storytelling, collaborative world building, and just, like, two heads are better than one. Like all ideas are great, but also their ideas are cheap, right? How you implement them is really important. And so, um, for me, the one I'm most excited about, or at least I was at the beginning, was our collaborative map making system. So we have a unique map making system that works just like our create system, where everyone at the table is ideating. Let's say they discover a dungeon or an abandoned starship, right? Like you ideate spaces or rooms, and then you vote on them, or maybe you don't vote on them, and maybe the game master just takes them and puts them in his or her back pocket, and then they lay them out in different ways. We have a few different variations of how to explore that, and it also works remarkably well if you're doing like a hex crawl mapping system, right? If you're trying to explore a map and you want to go hex by hex, like you can implement this, and it's a very cool, very exciting thing. That's one that I was from the get go most excited about. But I've really fallen in love. Relationships is really cool. I think that's a really great thing. And we have a cool system for knowledge and rumors where you ideate facts, and
Mhm.
then depending on the number of votes, it's on a scale of rumor to absolute truth, and some or one person is going to believe anything that's ideated, which can open up cool stuff for like conspiracy theories in your setting, and all sorts of cool things. So
Yeah.
there's a lot of great things, regardless of if you're playing in the Arium ecosystem or you just want additional tools for session zero and map exploration, stuff like that. It's all there.
And downtime. Yeah.
And
A lot of
downtime, lots of
downtime.
downtime. Hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'd say probably about a quarter of the book is additional enhancements and rules for create and discover specifically. And then
Mhm.
three-quarters of it is system agnostic. You can use it with any system you want.
Yeah. Yeah. Downtime is, I don't know, most things have a lot of games have like a downtime thing, but they don't all do. So yeah, just put this in there. Uh
Yeah.
well, so like so in addition to this book, like what else? I mean, you've got to do like you can get all three if you don't have any of them as part of this campaign, right? I mean, that has to be an option. But what I would assume, I mean, you gotta, right? But like what other options are there for the campaign? Like it's a campaign for both
Yeah,
the new book and also for all the books, right? Or
that's
what else
right.
is on offer?
Well, there is a box. So the books will come in a box, which is something that we I think wanted to do from the very beginning if we could, but boxes are hard, right? I
Yeah.
mean, it adds a whole level of, as you well know,
I
right?
it's
uh,
it,
it adds a whole level of complexity to creating a thing. Like books are pretty easy by comparison. So yeah, we're adding a box, and then we are adding some quad fold adventure setting type things that you can run. You can run them with Discover if you want. You can run them with any system if you want, I think. But we will have prompts to use tools from Arium Evolve in them for the adventure for the setting. And so there's some good stuff there as well. And then also we're going to add reference cards for all of the games, right? All of the books that make it easy to just at a glance use them at the table without, having to thumb through the book if you don't want to. So, yep.
cool. Lots of good options. And uh I think I don't I usually ask like people what they're doing next or whatever, but like when this is still to happen at the time of recording, we're at the beginning or the before. We're the before this even launches. So like this is the next thing that you all are doing. Um uh is there anything else that you want to talk about the system or other things that you've done? Like I guess maybe I'll ask like what is the as kind of a transition toward the outro here, like what is the coolest thing that you've made or session you've played or like whatever, like that you've used Arium to make a thing that's something else that isn't Arium, that you've used it and you've made it and you either played in that world or you wrote that story or like what's something that you've done with it as kind of like a final proof of concept, I guess.
Not a role-playing game.
Anything. Because
Yeah,
correct me if I'm wrong, but you used Arium to write Obelisk, right? You made all the Obelisk stuff using Arium, right? And that's
that is,
I'm gonna have you
yeah,
back on, Will, when it's time to talk about Obelisk, but like but that's right? So it doesn't have to be a
yeah,
role-playing game, but it could be. If that's your
yeah.
answer, then
Yeah, there's definitely that. I think Drew, you should talk about if you want, about the event at LTE earlier this year. I think that'd be a really good thing to think
Yeah.
about.
Yeah, we've been able to take the Arium Create world building experience to a few different conventions. Locally in Utah, we have a very popular, massive like sci-fi fantasy writing convention called LTUE. and that happens every year. And major big hitter authors are there every single year. And we've been able to open up a ballroom for like a 2 hour experience and run groups through. What do we have? We had 50 some this year. And then the first time we did it, which was like a big flagship anniversary year for LTUE, we had what, 100, a little over 100 people in the room. And we just had people sitting at random tables, and that was their group, and everybody got to create. This year, what we did was a mega dungeon. Not that this is any way tied to, but Matt Dinneman was one of the authors at LTV this year, so let's do a mega dungeon, and everybody got to create a level of this dungeon. Again, nothing tied to Matt Dinneman. It was just like a really cool tie-in. So every table created their own level of a 12 level dungeon, and by the end, we have this full mega dungeon that we have all the information for, the concept, the theme, the, how things work, who inhabits it, right? All of that. And it'll get bundled up and put out there. So I think that that's a really great experience. And we've done that a couple of times at different conventions. And that's been awesome.
I think that really shows the like sort of additive collaborative power, right? It's like, it's like that's 100 hours of work done in 2 hours because you had 50 people do it at
Yeah.
the same time, like,
Yeah.
yeah, that's cool.
Yeah. We did that a couple years ago too. And we have a, I mean, we created a travel guide. It's basically a travel guide to the place, to the world, that we created. And it's in layout right now. So, hopefully we'll release that as an Adept Icarus thing here pretty soon. I'm actually it'll also be available for free online. But if anybody wants like a nice book of it, then we'll
Yeah,
have a book as well with art and everything. But, yeah.
cool.
Um, yeah. And then, like you said, we made uh, a whole bunch of realms for Obelisk with it. We've done, there is another book that we released several years ago. It was a stretch goal for the original Arium campaign called Arcadia, um, Planetary Amusement Recreation Park.
Yeah.
No, planetary. I don't know. It's a mouthful. Anyway,
Is it
but
supposed to
it's
spell out apes? Is that what it's supposed to spell out?
no, it's supposed to spell park.
Oh,
Arcadia Park. So,
okay, okay.
yeah, but
I think I
it's a
remember seeing
planet.
that for sale
It's
in
a
the IGDN booth. Um,
yeah. Yeah, it's a planet amusement park setting basically, and there's an adventure in there written by Liz Praticool and some cool stuff by Drew and some other authors, with some like micro adventure ideas and stuff. So pretty cool.
And that was created as part of our social media experience for the original Arium Kickstarter. We had stuff going on
Yeah.
through what was Twitter then, right? Like, and voting going on, and that was just the community experience of creating this world together. And man, is it a cool place to explore.
Yeah. Back when I was trying super hard to do social media.
Yeah.
yeah, it's that's a whole other job. Maybe that's
Yeah.
yeah. Anyway, I'm not gonna go off on that tangent. But speaking of social media and trying very hard at it, we should finish this up with where can people find more if they like anything that they've heard in this conversation about Arium, about if they're ready for another crowdfunding campaign, like where's the crowdfunding campaign? Where can they find Adept Icarus? If you've got personal socials you want to be people to hit you up at, what are all those for both of you? If not, that's also fine. But like, where first the project, Arium or Adept Icarus in general, and then any personals that you guys want to shout out.
Yeah. The project, the crowdfunding will be on Kickstarter. It primarily because the original campaign was on Kickstarter and it sort of made sense to just keep it on the same platform.
Hmm.
So it's on Kickstarter. There is a pre-launch page up now. So whenever this goes live, that'll definitely still be there or it'll be launched, one of the two. The you can find it easily by going to adepticarus.com or ariumrpg.com. Either one of those websites will get you more information or get you to the right place. I think the links to our socials are at the bottom of any page on either of those websites. And if you go to one of the socials, I think the ones that we like actively say that we're on are Blue Sky, Instagram, YouTube, and Discord, right? If it's got my name in it, then I'm actively managing it, and I'm sort of interacting as me. If it doesn't have my name in it, then I may or may not have a lot to do with it, but it's there. So.
Yeah.
Um, and yeah, I think I don't really maintain other personal social media. So, yeah, I think that's it.
Well, thanks for that.
Hmm.
You got any other place you want to be found, Drew? Again, it's okay
Uh,
if you don't.
yeah, no, I like my I have some Instagram, very, very inactive there. I'm not, I have a presence on, X and stuff, but I just, sort of stepped away from social
Yeah,
media.
sure.
But like you can find me on Instagram at worddrew, WORDREW. If you want to talk world building or storytelling or, collaboration, like you can always find me there and drop me a line. I just don't do a lot of active posting, other than when we have a Kickstarter coming up, right? But yeah, I would say honestly a really great place to find both of us would be the Adept Icarus Discord. Like that server is great, and a lot of long time like day one fans of Arium are there still talking about their next create session that they ran and ideas that they have. And it's a great community, and we'd love to make that a larger community because more people, more collaboration, more amazing ideas, and more wonderful stories to explore.
Oh, that's great. What a great sum up. Thank you so much to both of you for being here. I've enjoyed talking to you, hearing about this project, and I wish you the best of luck on the campaign, the run, the funding period. So we'll be sharing this as part of that, and this video is part of that promotion. We'll share the links on Wet Ink as well. So thank you so much for your time tonight to talk to me about this, and we'll see you around on this big old World Wide Web we're on.
Bye.
Thanks so much, Matt.
Thank you.
And thanks everybody for watching the video.